Thank you for your interest in the IVF Australia Egg Donor Program. My name's Melissa and I'll be doing a short presentation for you today to cover the important points to help you decide if this is the right process for you. So what will we be covering? Firstly, who can be an egg donor, the process that's involved with you, the legal framework surrounding donation, the implications counselling and what's involved. What are the emotional things that you might like to consider for the future? And what are the rights of the child born from this donation? So firstly, who can be an egg donor? Women aged between 21 and 38 years are eligible. You may or may not have already had your own children. You need to be in good physical health and have no significant mental health problems. We need to ensure that there is a minimal risk of genetic conditions and no serious criminal record. So what's the process for you? Firstly, we get you to do a consult with one of our fertility specialists. The doctor will get all your health information, particularly in relation to your fertility. We'll then ask you to do a variety of screening tests. So there's some blood tests where they look at things like infectious conditions and your AMH level, also common genetic conditions and recessive genetic conditions. And we get you to do an internal ultrasound as well. Following those tests, there are 2 counselling sessions. If you have a partner, they need to be involved in those. I'll talk in more detail about those sessions in a little while. The next part of the process is choosing the recipients. So all our recipients put their profiles up on our website. We give you access to the website and you decide who you would like to donate the eggs to. Once you've decided on the recipients, the next part of the process is actually doing an IVF cycle. So what does an IVF cycle involve? Firstly, you come in for an orientation visit with the nurses. They will teach you how to use all the medications. And then you do the 2 weeks of hormone injections. They're those pen injections that you put into your tummy. While you're having the injections, you need to come into the clinic every few days for blood tests and scans, just to check how things are going. And in the afternoon, the nurses will call you with an update on what's happening. So you need a little bit of flexibility around work during those 2 weeks so you can pop in for the appointments as needed. At the end of the 2 weeks, you do an egg collection procedure. So that's a surgical procedure and you would come into one of our day hospitals in the morning. You're under anaesthetic for about half an hour. Usually people, they come in the morning, they're home by lunchtime and then they have a quiet afternoon. So you will need to take that entire day off work. And following that, most people are fine to go back to work the next day. Once the eggs are collected, they're fertilised by the sperm in the lab. So, and then the embryos are grown for 5 days. At the end of the 5 days, either one of the embryos is transferred to the recipient, or sometimes they freeze all the embryos and they transfer them at a later time. Then that's the end of the process for you once the egg collection has happened. But there's just a little bit of paperwork to do. So we like you to complete your profile and some consent forms. We ask for a photo of you as a young child and that sort of information. So that's all put onto the website as well. Okay. So what's the legal situation? Donation in Australia has to be an altruistic gift. It's not legal to pay donors for any donation. So blood, tissues, organs, gametes, all of it has to be done altruistically. We are able to offer you a small reimbursement for costs associated with the cycle, and there is no out-of-pocket medical expenses or anything like that for you. The recipient covers those costs. So in New South Wales, the legislation limits donors to creating 5 families. For many of our egg donors, we know that this is probably a one-off. Occasionally people want to donate more than once. But if you have your own family already, that's one family. So the maximum donations you could make would be to 4 other families. All of our donors must consent that they're happy to go onto the New South Wales Central ART Donor Register. This is a closed register managed by the New South Wales Health Department. The only person that can get your identifying information is the child once they turn 18. Donors have no parenting rights or responsibilities. It's the recipient's names on the birth certificate. The register is also one way, so the child can search for the donor, but the donor is not able to search for the child. Okay, so next slide. Implications counselling. What do we talk about? I guess it's a little bit about, it's a time for reflection to decide if this is the right thing for you. If you have a partner, they must actually attend these sessions with you. So the things we cover are your background history, so social information, family history, psychological history. We ask you questions about, how long have you been thinking about donating? Why would you like to donate? And also, most importantly, the potential impact it might have on you in the future. So, if you don't have a partner now, telling a partner in the future. If you have children, telling them that they have half siblings out there in another family. Also, how much contact do you want with the recipients, if any? And if you don't have any contact with the child, is that going to impact on you all? Would you be okay knowing there's a child out there that you don't have any information about? So there's quite a lot of things to consider before moving forward. What are the things that you need to consider? Firstly, who would you like to donate to? We have a number of people on our program who using donor eggs is their best chance to have a family. So we have heterosexual couples, we have single women, and we have same-sex male couples. So thinking if you have a preference, or you might be happy to donate to anybody on the program. But when you look at the profiles, you can make a decision around who you would like to help. One of the important things to think about is what sort of contact you would like in the future. Some of our donors just want to choose the recipient, do the cycle, and then not really have any contact until the child turns 18 or until the child has questions, and that might be a bit younger than when they're 18. Some donors would prefer a bit more regular contact, so potentially, an update every year or something like that. There's no right or wrong around this stuff. It's just making sure that the recipients and the donors have the same expectation of what that contact might look like. There's also the opportunity, if both parties are in agreement, to have a joint counselling session to sort of talk through those expectations in a little bit more detail and make sure everybody's on the same page. Obviously, this is a lifetime commitment. Once embryos are created, you can't change your mind. They're legally the responsibility of the recipients at that point. You might like to think about how you're going to share that information with your own family, so your own children and also your extended family if you wanted to share that with them. What are some reasons that offspring reach out? Generally, it's to get more information about the donor if they haven't had any contact. So they might want to know what you look like. They might want a bit more medical information, a bit more information about your family, your interests, that kind of thing. Children that I've seen are very clear that they're not looking for a parent. They're just looking for information generally. They have parents at home. So generally, it's about making a connection and missing pieces for their identity, I suppose. So what are the rights of the donor-conceived child? Once a young person reaches 18, they have the right to obtain any identifying information about their donor. However, given the nature of our program, you might have already decided that you know, you might already have had contact with that family prior to the child being 18. All the recipients are encouraged to be very open with their children from a young age about their origins. So we talk to them about when their children are preschoolers starting to tell the story. So something along the lines of, you know, mummy really wanted to have a baby and she couldn't do it by herself. So a kind lady called a donor helped her. And there's some lovely children's books that explain donor conception as well. So given that children are being told from a young age that they are donor conceived, it is quite likely that at some point they'll be interested in meeting that donor. We have a program called Donor Siblings, and if a donor has donated to more than one family, like I mentioned earlier, if you know those families, sometimes you all have a connection anyway, but otherwise we can share the information between families so they can find out if they've used the same donor, the gender and year of birth of any other children created using that donor. We also get you to do a donor profile. So that has a lot of general information about you. This is de-identified, so if you choose not to have any contact at all, this is the information that recipients will get. So your year and general background information, information about your physical characteristics, education, type of employment you have, what your interests are, a bit of information about your personality, and a photo of you as a young child. Recipients are also given the medical information that we have collected about you. Hopefully this has given you some information and some food for thought. If you have further questions, feel free to contact our donor support team. You can also obviously bring up any questions that you might have in the implications counselling sessions. That's what they're all about. We're able to also give you some resources and things that you might like to read or research on. Thanks so much for your time today, and thank you for considering being part of our program.